What's your scary or paranormal story? Not my but my uncle's, who lives in a secluded area in the woods alone. It happened during the winter. Came back from the bar late one night. Went through the front door, decided not to hang his coat up, throws it on the dining room chair. Sits down on the couch and watches Bottom Line for the Flyers score. This was before smartphones. While he was waiting, he hears a noise in the coat closet, decides it's nothing and goes back to his thing. After finding the score, he turns in for the night. The next morning he finds the closet door wide open, along with the side door complete with visible footprints leading into the woods. Christmas year 2000. My sister died August that year and we shared a room. She was 12. I was 7. I was in my room and I heard dripping coming from my ceiling. Nothing there. A while later, more dripping, still nothing. Late afternoon, more dripping. Now a big puddle of red on my wooden floor. Stepdad goes up to the attic. Everything completely dry. All my sister's things were right above my ceiling. Never did figure out what the red liquid was. Well, not my story. My grandma's. She unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. She was a great woman though. My grandma was walking upstairs to her bedroom, shutting off all the hallway lights while holding some strings that lead to her bedroom. It was really dark, and my grandma was pretty blind. Eventually, she found her way to the bed and plopped down, laying on her right, then shortly after, half asleep. Till she felt someone lay next to her. "I didn't hear you coming up here," she said. She thought it was my grandpa, but she heard no response. She thought he might have been sad/mad or something. Has a war vet, he gets grumpy and sad sometimes. She was just about to turn over to comfort him till she seen that nobody was there. She instantly felt energetic enough to go back downstairs and tell the story to my grandpa, then my mom, then to us. I'm not sure if this belongs here, but this is one of my favorite scary stories from my grandma. Well, after my cat died in November 2019, there would be a door slightly open despite knowing that I closed it. Or the one time I was home alone and hear some loud noise from inside my house. I went to check and there was nothing. It doesn't really make any sense, but that's exactly how it happened. I was about 7 years old. My mom always went to bed early and looked in my room beforehand to check if I was asleep. I liked to play at night. Of course, I always just pretended to be asleep and then took out my Game Boy. So my mom was in bed. My dad always watches TV late and goes to bed late. Before he does that, he always checks to make sure the front door is locked. It's an old wooden door that is warped and quite loud when it opens. So it's a very distinctive sound. I woke up when my dad checked the front door and locked it. After that he came up the stairs and went to bed. After that I couldn't fall asleep and played Pokemon on Game Boy. After a while, I hear someone open the front door, even though it was locked, and stomp up the stairs. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that my parents were in bed. Was the door unlocked? I suspected it was a burglar. I was as quiet as a mouse and listened. And now something very strange was happening, which made no sense at all. The supposed burglar used the bathroom upstairs and left the house again through the front door. The next day I asked my parents if the front door was locked this morning. Yes. I asked if anyone had to go to the bathroom at night. No. I can't explain it to this day and it makes zero sense. I was definitely not dreaming. So, I had one of those things as a kid where you put a net above your bed, and when you look up you see stars. The first, and last, time I did that, I woke up very late in the night. It was pitch black, but somehow I still saw a silhouette sitting on the edge of my bed. What scares me the most is that it looked identical to my grandmother. A little background: before she moved back to her original house, my grandma lived in Tennessee. When this occurred, she was staying at our house for a couple days. I called my grandma. She had left to go back to Tennessee in the morning and asked if she had been in my room late at night. And she said that she had left shortly after I went to bed, and never came in my room. I don't know if I dreamed it or whatever, but I never used that net thing again. And that silhouette never came back. Or at least, I never saw it again. Okay, so this happened when I was in 9th grade. I am living in a big city and I mostly use the subway to go wherever I want, because my mother can't afford a car. I remember that I was on my way to visit my boyfriend and as usual, I used the subway. I only had to drive to the next station, because it's not a very long way. I had to stay in the subway for about 12 minutes. I was already waiting at the subway station, when I noticed a guy that was giving me a very creepy look. He was around my age and a little bit taller than me. His hair was blonde and he had deep brown eyes. I exactly remember what he was wearing. Gray cargos, a black hoodie and Nike shoes covered in dirt. When I looked back at him he didn't do anything. He just stood there and didn't even break the eye contact. That was when I started thinking that something wasn't right. When I finally got into the subway, I noticed he followed me. He sat down only 2 or 3 seats next to me. He still kept looking at me. It got so awkward, I texted my boyfriend. "Babe, there is a guy and he won't stop watching me. Things are getting creepy." Since it was very late, my boyfriend texted back that I'm just paranoid and I should calm down. Maybe he was right, I thought. When he finally looked away, I used the chance to change seats, because that was a little too weird for me. Finally I was safe from his weird looks. When I reached the station, still in fear, my boyfriend picked me up, because I asked him to since I was very scared. We wanted to go upstairs and walk to his house, when I noticed the boy standing in a corner of the station smiling at me, with his eyes wide open. I told my boyfriend there he is. I meant him, and pointed at him. When my boyfriend asked me, "Who? What do you mean?" I realized, the boy wasn't there anymore. How could he get up the stairs so fast? Was he just an imagination? I never saw him again. I am now out of school, already starting my campus life, and I'm still thinking about what happened back then. My boyfriend and I, who are still together by the way, decided to not talk about that again. I am studying architecture and our teacher, who somehow very spiritual, once told us about ghosts. Since then I am thinking, imagination or ghost? I do homeless outreach. I have seen some dark things, even evil things, but it is always tinged and anchored to the person's humanity. One day though, I went into this parking structure where some homeless people were. The energy instantly changed, and it felt like the light dimmed. My heart started racing, and I felt pure terror. Anyone who has felt that knows what I am talking about. I gave my care packages and immediately left. The gaps between the parking structure cement columns had fencing, and as I ran away, one of the people in there came up to that fence and said in what could only be described as a demonic voice, "Stay." I am not prone to exaggeration, but in their eyes, I saw something. It was like this person's body was behind the fence peering out at me, and behind the fence of their eyes, a demonic entity was looking out at me from inside of them. It really affected me.